Hello, everybody. It's Oliver Turnbull here. I don't normally give my name, but I'm going to today. Oliver Turnbull, host and producer of The Media Beat. And we're well into the 80s now, episode 81. And of course, to give it its full title, it's The Media Beat with Maureen Kerr and Claire Tavernier, who are our experts who you know so well. And we've got a bumper one. In our deep dive today, we'll be asking why so many media companies split their business up, which is one of those questions you think, oh yeah, that's a good point. That is happening. Why is that happening? So that's why we're doing a deep dive on that. We're going to be talking about Paramount, obviously, and Netflix, obviously, as we always do, and they're sniffing around WBD. Meta and Wearables. I'm looking forward to that one. I love a wearable. I have a couple of wearables on right now. One for my blood pressure, which is probably going up with the stress of doing this podcast. We'll be looking at what's happening on YouTube and what you can see on YouTube. Murdoch and TikTok. Have you ever heard those words together before? ITV has a big birthday, and we can't have a podcast on media without mentioning Jimmy Kimmel. And I'm sure there will be opinions on that. But first, I'm not even sure who's kicking off this deep dive. It's normally Maureen's term, I think. Yeah. So Maureen is going, she's doing that thing that really clever, the cleverest girl in the class does with the memis. It's memis. I've done a project and I want to talk about it. She's doing that kind of thing. So
it reminds me of Donkey in Shrek.
Yeah.
Hey, I was doing a dance. I wasn't putting my hand up. That's unfair. But anyway, here's an apple for both of you.
Lovely. He said, "I'm a noble steed." Or Shirley Valentine as well. Anyway, let's stop this nonsense, which is amusing and fun. And so Maureen, the floor is yours. The question is, why are so many media companies splitting their businesses up?
Well, that's a really good question. And it just happens to be that every few months we're seeing another major media company announce a split. Now, I think at first glance, Oliver, you think that's all very chaotic, but it's not. So these breakups are deliberate attempts to rewrite company balance sheets and also reorganize their business models so that the legacy players in media can survive the next decade. Okay, so the logic is simple, isn't it, Oliver?
Yeah,
right. So separate fast-growing IP-driven businesses, i.e., studio, streaming, and gaming, from the slower, cash-rich television networks, and that's what investors, lenders, and buyers really want to look out for, so that they can value them. This is about valuation. They can value them on its own terms instead of applying what we call in the industry a company conglomerate discount to the whole, and that's what usually happens. But what's surprising in 2025 is the pace has accelerated. As Claire and I have discussed on this podcast a number of times, Warner Brothers plans to divide into two listed businesses in 2026. So you've got Warner, which will have that sort of, the gaming and streaming and studios, and then you'll have Discovery Global, which is the legacy business, which will have the linear networks and, of course, Discovery Plus. We saw also over the summer, Lionsgate, or pre-summer, Lionsgate executed a clean spin, splitting itself from Stars. And, of course, now we know, and we'll be talking about this for right through to the end of the year now, I think, that Paramount has recombined with Skydance, closing the deal in August, really creating a structure that the market can price more easily. And that's the fundamental point here. But the wave is not just American. So in Europe, we've seen this and we've commented on this as well. Media for Europe has consolidated control over ProSieben and Sat.1, securing a dominant position in the German free-to-air broadcasting and streaming. And then we've spoken about this, Sky has sold Sky Deutschland to RTL, combining sports, pay TV and entertainment into one German powerhouse. Now, the strategy, again, I'm going to keep using these words, the same. It's about simplifying, it's about achieving some scale, but it's actually about creating tradable pieces of the company, pieces that can withstand global competition. That's effectively what they've been doing. But I have been very diligent, and I've got three different drivers of why these companies split. I've been talking about valuation. That's one of them. That's very clear. But streaming and studios are benchmarked these days against Netflix, which, as we've all spoken about, reached margins of 34% in the second quarter of this year. And they're guiding throughout the next year around 20 or 30%, I should say, sorry. Linear TV, by contrast, has been in decline for 9 consecutive years, with penetration in the US, as we know, falling to around 34% at the end of last year. Investors pay for growth; they don't pay for shrinkage. So keeping the two together means neither is valued properly, and separation really does restore clarity. And when you've got growth assets, they'll be priced as growth. When you've got cash assets, they'll be priced for yield. So that's a really important point around valuation. And the second thing is debt. We know Warner Brothers is sitting on $37 billion of debt. And when they announced the breakup, Fitch downgraded the company to junk status. So now they'll have 2 smaller businesses listed, less diversified entities, but nonetheless, that sounds a bit negative, but it is deliberative, because they'll push all the debt into the arm with steady cash flows, and then they'll let the growth side, so what Zaslav will be running, that side will really carry through, and then will carry through the investment cycle. So the credit markets really do prefer clean stories. Each post-split company will be able to refinance on its own terms that match its own risk. And then the third thing is really strategic freedom. So once these pieces have been unbolted, you've got deal making that will start again, and it gets easier. So Paramount Skydance merger is one example, and now rumors of David Ellison preparing for a bid for Warner. I mean, it all becomes very confusing. It is like a soap opera. And in Europe, you've got, of course, as I said, MFE's move into ProSiebenSat.1's Sky RTL. In both markets, though, these assets are now definitely easier to buy, sell, and recombine again than they are at the moment, which is really more of a tangled conglomerate. So none of this comes without trade-offs. As soon as you split up these companies, though, their portfolios lose some of the benefits. Fewer ways to spread the costs of big sports rights, fewer cross-promotional levers, weaker bargaining power with distributors and advertisers, and the creative synergies fracture into license negotiations, maybe across different corporate boundaries. So company boards nonetheless know about these disbenefits of reducing the scale, but they push ahead nonetheless, because it really does sharpen the strategy. So as I say, the growth arm will get focused, and it'll be on the product, pricing, ad tech, without really worrying about and having to defend the declining networks and the legacy business. And then the network arm, that really will be managed for efficiency, cash flow, and maybe they'll even consolidate themselves, across other linear platforms. So splitting really does reopen the buyer universe. You've got a tech platform might buy a studio. We might comment on that a little bit later, but it would never touch a bundle of cable channels. So after separation, that studio becomes fair game. So the question is a practical one. Who gets the libraries? Who shoulders the debts? What dividend policies emerge? How do the rating agencies really sort of stabilize once they separate the cash flows, if at all? But if you remember AT&T selling off Warner in the first place quite a few years back, it took a little while, but then they were re-rated, and then they really did sort of show an uplift in their stock price. The question I have is, what will happen in the UK? Does ITV Channel 4 and Channel 5 face the same restructuring logic now this is playing out in Germany and the US? But anyway, breakups are not silver bullets, but they are definitely financial and strategic tools, and it does sharpen the focus. So I don't know, paradoxically, we all thought this was a scale-driven industry, and breaking them apart may actually only be the way for them to survive going forward. And that's my little sort of penny's worth of thoughts there in terms of why companies split. But that's enough for me.
I thought that was brilliant, and I learned a lot as always when you talk about these things. And it's very clear, I think, to all observers that this is done to push shareholder value. But so I'm going to add my complete Luddite version of this, which is I always look at it like a Lego playing field. Imagine lots of little yellow bricks of Lego who are the linear channels, and they're told that they need to add a red brick on top, which is their streaming, and then another blue brick on top, which is, games, etc. And so they are like all these multicolored houses that they've been pushed by the markets, by the way, to diversify into all of this. And there are advantages and some economies of scale, etc. And what we're seeing at the moment is those little multicolor houses are breaking up, and new houses are being built. Do you like my idea? I'm
I
just
love
saying it
it.
very visually.
I love
Keep
it.
going,
But
keep
the,
going.
I'm visualizing it.
the
I'm
new
visualizing it.
houses are all the same color, and we're moving into, so it's all about getting all the little yellow bricks together and creating economies of scale by building bigger yellow houses. And then, the red houses, who were very small at the beginning and losing a lot of money and are more stable now, can get together and create red houses. I'm going to stop with Lego now, but I think it's important because originally the market wanted diversification. They wanted those multicolor houses. And now that we're in a different phase of growth, they don't want them anymore for all the reasons that you've explained, Maureen. And so the step of splitting them up is the absolute logical step if you're trying to maximize shareholder value, which these guys are doing. I will say, and that's not been quoted by anybody as a reason to do this, but it also, you need very different management and leadership skills to run these businesses. And not that this seems to be a priority for anybody, but it's worth mentioning. Running businesses that are, very cash positive, but are in decline is a very different type of skill, and you can do it very well. And as you say, you can manage them for yield, you can create a lot of value, you can build it in that way, but that's not the same skill as running a high growth, very cash intensive business that is competing with giants such as Netflix, etc., etc. So the hope is that you can get specialized management skills for these two businesses that are much more suited to their different strategies, but you will lose some of those connections. And I think your point about the UK is very interesting, and it's the same to some extent is true with some of the larger European networks who still have a combination of legacy channels and a fast growing, more and more profitable streaming business. Do you keep the multicolor house? Do you break it up is it worth doing at the country level of a UK or a France or a Germany, or actually are these markets too small for this strategy to make sense? I'm not sure. At the US/global level, definitely a logical, although slightly strange when you see it from the outside, where as soon as you start analyzing it makes complete sense. So yeah, that was my Lego analogy.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to use that at some point. And we must maybe stick with that analogy when we're talking about all these companies going forward. Are
We
they
should
are they
always
the
talk
red
about
bricks?
Legos.
Yeah, red bricks or yellow bricks? That's what we should call it. Yeah, but you're absolutely right about the management, and it's no mistake. This isn't by accident that Discovery Global will now be run by the Chief Financial Officer.
Yeah, and Václav went with the sexy high growth bit.
Exactly. Although strangely, he does have a reputation for cost management and for, but a growth business is the one that he's going to be running now. So it needs more investment, and it's on that investment cycle. So yeah. I mean, I love that. Lego had it.
It just was it was the icing on the cake of an incredible cake. That was absolutely stunning.
Beautiful cake.
Wasn't it a great cake? It was just beautifully made, beautifully structured. That's the thing I liked about it particularly. You went through the points one by one. Absolutely. I'm going to listen to that again, actually, when we stop recording, because it was so informative, right on point. And the Lego icing, it was just like, it was just actually answered the exam question perfectly. It's almost like you prepared it. No, it was really, really good. Very, 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 very convincing. And also nice that it's kind of like a puzzle that will never end, because there'll be so many moving things and moving factors and stuff. So thanks for that. That was excellent. So now you know the answer to why so many media companies split their businesses up. The answer is Lego bricks. Moving on, it is now time for In the News. And here we go. And the first story is Claire. So Claire has donned a raincoat and a large hat where she can sneak around and find out what is actually going on around Paramount and Netflix. Seem to be sniffing around WBD with your enormous magnifying glass and your detective's kit. Claire, what have you found out? What's going on?
So this is the red Lego bit of WBD, I should say. We're just going to go with that analogy forever now.
That's
But
going to
this
stick.
is we've talked about the fact that WBD is one of the groups that is breaking up. So this is the streaming and studio focus side of the breakup, which includes Warner Brothers Pictures, DC Studios, HBO Max. Still not entirely sure what the difference is there, and all of their film and TV content libraries. It's not the Discovery Channel. It's not the global. I think it's called Global Networks bit. But so that bit, the red brick, is suddenly attracting lots of interest from lots of other red bricks, of which the biggest red brick of them all, Netflix. Loving this. So what we have is Paramount Skydance, as Maureen mentioned, finally merged and run by Ellison, is talking about acquiring the whole of this new. I think, is it called Warner now? I don't know. I'm lost with the names. Yes, Maureen says yes, it's called Warner. So they want to acquire all of it. They want to combine it with Paramount's existing IP and existing platforms so that they can compete head to head with Disney and Netflix. So this is exactly what we were talking about. This is consolidating similar assets that have started to break up in order to create scale. Meanwhile, Netflix has come in, and that was a bit of a surprise because Netflix has not, unlike, for instance, Amazon, which has invested in library content in the past. Netflix has not done that. But in this case, they have said that they were interested in buying, not everything, they don't want everything, but they want the streaming platform and they want the studio assets, which is, in order to, I think it's a very interesting move by Netflix because they haven't looked at acquisitions before. This is not something that they've pushed in the past in that way. And I was quite surprised. I'd love to hear what Maureen thinks about it. But yes, so here we are. We don't know. There may be other bidders, obviously, including Comcast, NBC Universal, potentially Amazon. But right now, Netflix and Paramount are the leading contender. It's sort of assumed that somebody will buy it. They're a bit too subscale it's a very small red brick, and they won't probably make it on their own. So one of the ideas behind the breakup was probably already to consolidate with someone. I don't know what that means for Zaslav. Is he going to be out of a job? Maybe we can get him on the podcast. Anyway, that's what's going on. Paramount or Netflix? Who knows? What did you think, Maureen?
Well, yeah, I think they're two different stories, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it would take Hollywood in completely two different
Yeah.
tracks as well. So, I mean, if it's Paramount Skydance, okay, so it's very much a survival logic. I mean, it makes absolute sense. But they've got to sort of pull this recombination off first. So it's going to be a lot to do if they then go and buy Warner. But it is, as you rightly say, it's all about scaling the franchises and the IP. Because I think without that, they still seem a little vulnerable, even if they are quite big now with Paramount and Skydance. It does. With the combination of Warner, I think there'd be a force to be reckoned with against a Disney. So that's a really good play for them, and I'm sure Ellison will throw all of its might at trying to secure this. If I see who's truly in the running, and if the reports are correct that Netflix is in the running, I think Paramount Skydance will probably get it, and they'll pay over the odds for it. But I think Netflix may actually. I mean, it's a radical move. It truly is radical. I was also shocked when I heard this, like you, Claire. It's always when Netflix has always sort of had this sort of pride of, I don't want to get involved in this messy studio and distribution business, not interested whatsoever. And this would mean that it picks that up. So, I think it's really...
It must be feeling the heat of pressure. It feels like a defensive move.
It does. And I can't find the logic yet. But but they said they would never do ad tiers, and then they moved
Well,
into
that's true.
advertising. So I don't know. So I think that will actually be amazing, and it really will change the balance of power in Hollywood if Netflix gets it. I think the open question is definitely going to be. I think it's going to be a regulatory sort of
For sure.
push on this. Would the world's largest streamer be allowed to swallow one of the big five studios? I don't know. Don't know yet. Yeah, but it sounds like they've shown their interest, and they've thrown their hat in the ring. So let's see. But I think this is going to be priced, and I think Ellison will not leave the room without signing, on the dotted line.
Yeah.
I think he desperately wants it. Desperately wants it.
But
So,
you said yourself as well that there's a lot of debt in there. A lot of debts. If you're buying Warner's, you're buying a lot of debt as well. So that
but
will be an interesting
but
play.
Claire, it depends if it's just a Warner part. There's probably not much debt in that on that side. I
Oh,
think
that's true. He
the
left it all with the
the,
legacy
the
business.
legacy business. So there's the Gunnar, the CFO, has
Yeah.
got to deal with that because of course the linear channels are very much a cash cow at the moment. So that's the fuel to pay down the debt. So, but I don't know. You're absolutely right. I mean, there'll still be some debt sitting in Warner, but yeah, I don't. But look, Oracle is the most valued business at the moment, and Larry Ellison is probably the richest man today. He might not be the richest man tomorrow, maybe the second richest man tomorrow. I think he's going to give whatever his son wants, and they'll get this. That's my view.
So it's
Prediction
interesting.
there. Prediction there.
Yeah, we
Did you
never
sense
Do you
that,
predicted.
think so?
Oliver?
You
Yeah,
think
we
it's
logged
going
that
to be
prediction.
Ellison?
I think it's going to
You,
be Ellison. Yeah.
We'll log that prediction. Hang on, write that down. Because so far, I
What do you
believe.
think, Claire? Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I think it'll be interesting because I think what I'm seeing is that Netflix could suggest a breakup and buy only some of the assets and keep some of the which would be more palatable for a regulatory perspective. Maybe keep HBO and HBO Max outside because what would he do with that? And buy some of the library content. And Zaslav might be quite happy with that because then he would get a big check, would get some cash to do whatever he wants, and he won't have the library content, but at this stage.
yeah. But don't
So
forget, it's still,
yeah,
yeah. No, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. But don't forget, it will be a listed business as well. So you have got, you got
yeah,
to pay for that period. I can't imagine they'll just be breaking bits off piecemeal. But you never know. You never know, and
never know.
it could just
Well,
be
it hasn't been done yet, so everything's
no.
possible. They could do it before listing. They
Yes,
could sell before listing, and the breakup hasn't happened yet.
yes. Good point. Exactly. Yeah.
It's almost limitless
Fascinating.
opportunities. Yes, we'll have to
Fascinating.
move on.
Are you at the edge of your seat right now?
I just can't wait for the next episode of these.
Of red of
It's quite
Lego.
fascinating.
Lego
Yeah,
brick.
of Lego.
The film.
Yeah,
The
This
film.
is a
Yeah.
red blick one.
like
Yeah.
we need Legos, but
Lego
not
with Claire,
documentaries.
Maureen, and
Yeah.
What will
Oliver.
happen
Yeah.
next? So thank you, brilliantly explained, and I can see Maureen trying to work out what the strategy is. She'll get to the bottom of it. I absolutely got no doubt whatsoever. What are they trying to do? And she'll work it out like a five-sided Rubik's cube. Okay, let's move on. So Maureen, you have a story. Now this is going to be exciting. It's Meta, which is fairly exciting, but Wearables, which is super, super exciting. What's the story?
Yes. Well, they have Meta Connect, which is Zuckerberg standing on stage. And of course, Meta has always been metaverse. Okay. So he's not giving up. That long bet on metaverse is continues in his mind. but it's at Meta Connect, you had a couple of announcements. One was the new Quest headset. And then, of course, he unveiled the upgrades which is annoying because I've just purchased my Ray-Ban.
Not your regrets.
And that was a reasonable price. These ones are $799. So upgrades to its Ray-Ban and Oakley smart glasses. And he's introduced something really very smart, really interesting, called the Neural Band, which is a wrist-worn controller that reads the muscle signals, and that becomes your mouse for the new wearables. And the wearable smart glasses, you'll have little screen things going on, and a bit like the Matrix, but you'll be using your hand to move things. On the stage, though, the technology didn't work, and Zuckerberg was really angry and blamed the Wi-Fi. Which was very funny. Oh, it's awful, isn't it? Yeah. So it's still experimental at the moment, but the direction definitely is clear now. So Meta really wants us to move off the computer screens and into wearables. So he's throwing all of his weight and might into this, which is fascinating. But we do, and we should sort of take stock here. Aside from the fact that the technology didn't work on stage, it is pretty smart stuff. It really is good stuff, but the risks are quite obvious. We remember Google Glass failed. The consumer sort of AI and VR still hasn't really broken through. And Apple's Vision Pro, I still want one of those, okay, but they're bloody very expensive, was widely sort of written off as a commercial flop. That said, I was at IBC last week and I just stumbled across this fantastic presentation by Black Magic Design. And this is all in the hall where it's all about physical equipment, so proper cameras and lenses and whatnot. But Black Magic Design was showcasing their new cameras that are being used with Vision Pro for the immersive 180-degree type of exploratory sort of pieces of film. And they were in the audience, there were directors, there were filmmakers, there were cinematographers. So I think maybe Apple Vision has found its professional market, not consumer market. And the stuff you could see was absolutely amazing. It was brilliant. And it's going to be great stuff and quite sort of inexpensive, serious stuff for that documentarians can use, and as I say, filmmakers can use. It's really good stuff. If anyone is interested, go and have a look at the Blackmagic Design website. It's groundbreaking stuff. So I think Meta's Neuro Band or Apple's Vision Pro is going to come into its own at some point, just not yet. So I know, Oliver, you were like screaming and shouting saying, yeah, wearables is great. I think it's just far too expensive for the average consumer. Professionals probably will start to use it. You never know. But I can't wait to replace my
can't believe you're going to replace them. I'm going to say
or sell them, trade up.
Yeah, we're seeing people walking in the street talking out loud because they're on their Bluetooth and having conversations, and now you're going to see them also like waving their hands about and having things on their phones. People are going to just run into each other. It's going to be a disaster. I don't know if you've I don't know if you've got an iPhone, I'm assuming, and I don't know if you've upgraded to iOS 26 yet, but I have. And in the new photo app, there's a weird new option, which is spatial photos. I think that's what it's called. And I didn't know what it was because it looked exactly like the other photos. And so I looked it up, and it's photos that are meant to be watched on the Vision Pro, which I was completely stumped about because I thought nobody had a Vision Pro. And here's Apple creating a whole new photo taking mode specifically for the Vision Pro. So I did look it up, and they are, don't buy yours now, Maureen, because they are coming up with a new version at the end of the year or early next year. Which will be, and they're talking about an Apple Vision Air, which will be lighter and more affordable, and more for mainstream rather than enterprise focus. So that'll be interesting. I still think it's a big ask to ask people to wear these things and you really look stupid. But then, I've been wrong before and people clearly don't mind looking stupid. Of all the things, I'm a very early adopter of technology, not of wearables for some reason. It took me a really long time to get an Apple Watch. I don't really like this sort of smart technology on me, but listen, I'm happy to be proven wrong. We shall see. And yes, as much as the Meta event was a bit of a disaster, reviews have been very positive for the products. It sounds like they've got something that really works.
Yeah, and it's good. And I am one of those mad persons who's walking on the street. I think the audio quality is amazing. And I make telephone calls, so I am talking to people. And I have to say, strangers are coming up because they think I'm talking to them. And they're smiling at me and chatting.
So like,
and
I'm
like,
don't talk to me.
Go away. I'm not in this conversation. so it's a bit odd.
Go away, I'm talking to my demons. Get away.
Yeah.
Get away. Oh, yeah. Do you remember that scene in W1A where the guy announced the great big IT upgrade?
Yes.
And then this gave no signal and he goes, oh, It was absolutely hilarious.
You know,
So that was
there's a new series with the
there
same
is.
characters.
There
Yeah,
is.
it's
Oh
coming
my
up. I'm
god,
so
yeah.
looking forward to it.
Oh, and me too, absolutely. Yeah, no, here's my wearable. It's my blood pressure, my blood pressure monitor, which has gone down. I'm now safe in my blood pressure, having lost 12 kilograms. Thanks for noticing. So yes,
Well, we
so
only
I'm
see your
healthy.
head, Oliver.
But even my head has been deflated, and it's probably best.
Congratulations. If you had connected wearables that would connect directly into the podcast stream, we would see your stats.
Oh my god, I've just got to do some soldering. Hang on a sec.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure about the glasses, but I suppose in the mid 90s, if you walked down the street on a mobile phone, you were considered a yuppie
Yeah.
idiot.
And
And
they
now,
were
of course,
massive,
they were. Oh
remember?
yeah, and yeah. So
The
things
bricks.
change. Yeah, that's right. Golly, they were
Do you remember
fantastic.
Dom Jolly?
Of course.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
exactly.
wonderful.
Yeah.
yeah.
Phone shop. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I'm on the phone. Yeah, no, yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
Anyway,
So that was good. Oh, great. Yeah, great segment. So finally on in the news. So we're going to now talk about YouTube. Gosh, remember YouTube? We talked about the first video that was ever on YouTube the other episode, didn't we? But YouTube, just where people were supposed to put their videos, and now it's a manual. It's a car manual, among other things. I've learned so much about DIY on YouTube, but it's so much more these days. Claire, you have that story.
Yes, there was an event that was called, it was the week of events. There was an event called Made on YouTube 2025, which happened in September, so this month, September 15th, 16th in New York City. And it was about marking YouTube's 20th anniversary, and it had some major announcements. One of the announcements was that over the last 4 years, the platform has paid out over $100 billion to creatives. And that's creatives, artists, and media companies globally. I'd love to dig into this number and find out how much of it is music, because that will be a big part of it. But still, it's a very big number. They announced a number of new innovations. A lot of them were AI driven, so I know that made Maureen very happy. But including YouTube Shorts enhancement. So now creators will be able to generate 8-second videos with audio from simple text prompts. So that will be interesting to see. Maybe we should do that. Let's try to do that and put it on the LinkedIn page. They also have Edit with AI, which will transform raw footage into a structure first draft by automatically arranging clip. I'm sure they can create an AI generated vlogger voice that says, "Hey guys, so today I was walking," anyway. And then they also have a lot of translation and dubbing and voiceover in lots of different languages, which is obviously going to be very interesting. Speech to song, which converts video dialogue into musical soundtracks. That sounds terrifying. That's mostly for shorts. And then studio updates. So they've had studios for creators for a long time, but they are improving that, which they're allowing creators to work better together. They are adding A/B testing for titles. They are improving their auto dubbing. All of this is, good news for anybody who creates videos on YouTube. They've always been very, very good at integrating new technology directly to the creators, and this was a big step forward for that. So if you are, or if you know somebody who makes content for YouTube, these will all be very well received. I'm going to add a completely unrelated point about YouTube because Oliver found it and it's completely cute and funny.
The story,
Warner
not
Bros.
me.
Well, both really.
Good.
So we're going back to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers Classic, one of the things they own, and maybe will be owned by Netflix soon, is Tom and Jerry. And they've been on YouTube for a long time with Tom and Jerry, for just pushing them. But what they've started doing this year is create mega compilations, which is really good. So they're like between 45 and 60 minutes of back-to-back Tom and Jerry's, all from a specific time period. And what that means as a parent of young children, which I haven't been for a while, is you could put them in front. We used to have the DVDs of Tom and Jerry, and we would put the kids in front of them, and they would just roll one after the other, and they would love them. So you can do that on YouTube now, and there are some very, very classic episodes, including the one where the little cousin from Paris comes in, and he's
Oh
very cute. It's my
yeah.
favorite.
What about
Bonjour,
him?
chat, he
Yeah,
says. I don't
he
know
was
if you
great.
remember him. And also, obviously, animal cruelty, but by other animals. So I think that's acceptable. So, all in all, a very busy week on YouTube, and go and watch Tom and Jerry because it's amazing.
And we're on YouTube as well. Needless
Yeah,
to
and we
say,
are on YouTube as well. So go and watch Tom and Jerry and listen to us at the same time, preferably.
I'm trying to
But
work out
Maureen, what did you think of
just
the
work out
AI?
quickly the percentage of the 100 billion that we've got from being on YouTube. I just done a quick calculation. It's
Oh,
zero
it's a
percent.
zero.
Sorry,
I
Maureen.
know. Don't rub it in, Oliver.
So what this reminded me of is, I mean, I think it's a really clear differentiator, YouTube and TikTok, for example, because I think
Mm.
what YouTube is saying is that we take a creator and we build their career, and and we give them loads of money, and then they say, well, actually,
And we give them tools.
and we give them tools as well, and that's right. Whereas sometimes people just assume that the creators have viral moments and viral moments only on TikTok, which I don't think that's really true, because I think you can build a career on TikTok as well. But then the TikTokers tend to want to go to the streamers like Netflix, so it's
Mm.
kind of interesting. But one thing I did pick up, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this, is it looks like YouTube is turning into like a storefront, and they kind of want their creator to be the storefront, and they're giving them the tools and the the ability to sell product and to sell brand. And I just wonder, and I can't remember where I picked this up from, but this turn into something which is not authentic and QVC 2.0, where all they're doing is
I mean,
flogging
that's not
stuff,
news. They've
flogging
been
stuff.
flogging
Yeah,
stuff on YouTube. I mean, I was
they
managing a
have. Yeah,
YouTuber stable in the mid 2010s, and we were flogging things on YouTube and being picked up by the advertiser, not us, obviously, other people, Advertising Standards Authority for not telling people we were flogging, etc. So it's nothing new. I think, yeah,
yeah.
you're right that I think it's a risk, but I don't think it's a new risk for YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, and all they have to do is then put disclaimers at the bottom anyway to say there are
Which
some,
is what the Advertising Standards
advertiser
Authority
standards or insist on
said.
that. Yeah, exactly. I remember that. I do remember that, and they continue to do that. So no,
Yeah.
I think YouTube is doing some fantastic stuff. I really do. As is TikTok. As is TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. And that Tom and Jerry thing, so that was my story. I feel like a cub reporter just out of university, just going up to the news desk and saying, guys, I've got a story. And they're going, no, not now, Turnbull. But no, it's a real story. It's about Tom and Jerry. Go on then, let's have a look at it, Turnbull. Okay, we'll run that on the second page. And I'm like, yeah, my first story. And then you cut to, and then I'm a well-known reporter. That's a kind of movie meme there that I'm living. So, yes, that was my big expose.
It was very cool. I liked it.
Tom and Jerry on YouTube. We love YouTube, and you can find all good podcasts, including this one, on YouTube. Thank you very much. That ends for this time in the news. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as they used to say on ITV variety shows in the 1970s, and we'll come back to ITV in a minute. It is time for Podmojis, the world-famous quiz where two of the greatest media intellects pitch themselves in battle to try to bring life to bits and pieces that have happened in the world of media since we last spoke. And we're going to be talking first, and I haven't in my notes got who to go to, so I'm going to decide. Murdoch and TikTok. Maureen.
Hello. Yes.
Hello. Are you well?
Do you want me to take it?
No,
I
no,
can
no,
take it.
no. I can take it. I can take it. Sorry, I was doodling and and I was just writing names down like Oracle's Larry Ellison's. That's all. So yeah. So TikTok's had another stay of execution, and there's now until the end of December whereby TikTok needs to be sold. I mean, the big question that Claire and I have is, sell what? But anyway, nonetheless, Rupert Murdoch's business, or Lachlan Murdoch, I should say, has been cited as perhaps a bidder for TikTok, either for the whole or to be a participant. And look, in my view, my instinct is that this TikTok does not fit in the Murdoch playbook. I mean, it really doesn't. The family has always gone after distressed media assets, newspapers, TV stations, platforms, and with editorial leverage. TikTok is fundamentally a tech product. From their perspective, it's about algorithms, infrastructure, and it's a regulatory headache. And the Murdochs always steer clear of regulatory headaches. So while I think Lachlan might be tempted, it's definitely, it might give it a distribution. It might be that he sees it as a distribution sort of superpower, but owning it would be the closest thing I think to controlling the sort of maybe the global front page, but the headache that comes with it because we don't actually know what's in it as well. But so I don't know if he sees it as being distribution, if he sees it as being a super play, power play, a global front page, then he might go after it. But I just don't think it's one for them. But I might be proven wrong. But the others, Ellison's, Oracle, and Silver Lake, and some other maybe private equity investors might still be in the running. And of course, Donald Trump has said that a deal will be done shortly before this third deadline is up. But I don't know, Claire. What do you think? I just don't think.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, and so penguins might fly. That's my thing.
Yeah,
Penguins might fly. I like
okay.
that.
Okay, stretching it.
I also don't. I mean, I do believe that there have been discussions. I don't think we're anywhere near a deal. It was interesting that Torb mentioned specifically the Murdochs because it would be Fox. It wouldn't be the Murdochs. It would be through Fox. It is true that this is a new Murdoch or a new Fox with Lachlan in charge, and he may have different views, and he's perhaps more ideologically driven than his dad, or certainly that's been the major tenet of what people have said. But generally, I am highly skeptical, so I'm going to do my French skeptical emoji.
Yes, the classic. 13.5 points.
I think I should bring a beret. I could do it better with a beret.
I've got my own beret.
Great with a beret.
I got given a beret by a French friend.
I'm going to try to pull that up next week. Yeah. Next time.
I look terrific in it. It's absolutely brilliant. I love that. That was good. 13.5 points for the French thing. Good. Right. Fantastic. Next one. I'll stay with you then, Claire. And we've mentioned ITV, or I have a couple of times. It was a channel. When I was young, we had 3 channels in the UK. BBC One, which was meh, BBC Two, which was terrible, and ITV, which I wasn't allowed to watch because it had adverts. So that's the kind of upbringing, the Victorian upbringing I had. But ITV, much loved linear channel on in the UK, is 70 years old, and that's well done, it, Claire.
Well done, it. It launched on the 22nd of September 1955. Wow. As independent television at the time, and it started at 7:15 p.m. with fanfares and speeches. And since then, of course, it's become a commercial juggernaut. But it's also, it's launched a number of really important and crucial cultural moments for the country. It's obviously on Coronation Street, in Emmerdale. It created The World at War. Do you remember that? We used to own the rights to that at Fremantle in 1974. The list of shows that they created is too long for words, but it's interesting. Sometimes there's a very long list online if you look for it. People sometimes see it as mostly a commercial channel, and it's known for Love Island. And do you know what? They were on another podcast which I listened to called Good to Hang with Amy Poehler. She was interviewing Olivia Colman, and Amy Poehler said, we used to think that Brits were much, much smarter than Americans because of the accent, but then we got Love Island, and I thought that was very funny. So that's this sort of image that ITV has now, but it is also, it produced Mr. Bates Against the Post Office. It is a major cultural player, and it has successfully reinvented itself a number of times, and more recently through streaming and through production with ITV Studios. So happy birthday, I guess. So, imagine fireworks. That's my fireworks and birthday candles Podmoji for ITV. Well done, ITV.
Don't like having to imagine too much, but it was very good the way that you did that with the arms and stuff. So, yeah, another 13.5 points. Maureen?
Okay, can I be a bit of a sourpuss here? Sorry. Only because one of my old bosses many years ago, Clive Hollick, used to run one of the, or several of the he used to run Meridian,
Of course. Yeah.
several of the TV stations. Now, look, like what we call ITV today, it wasn't born in 1955 as a single company. It was basically a patchwork of regional franchises up and down the country. We had Granada, Thames, London,
That's true.
Weekend Television, Yorkshire, and then the Meridian, which is Clive Hollick's sort of business, was then bolted on. But what happened is that Federation only consolidated much later when Granada and Carlton merged in 2004. And the reason that I was sourpuss is because Clive Hollick tried to consolidate this himself and was told by the regulators to bugger off, you're not allowed, and then sold his businesses that became, I think he sold it to Granada and Carlton then merged, and that became ITV PLC. So sorry, I've had this bee in my bonnet ever since I sort of read the Guardian article, and I just thought, no,
It's
it's
not
not
really
that. It's
70
not that.
years.
It's not really 70 years. But what is 70 years is the legacy. The legacy. It's the we're celebrating 70 years of commercial television in the
Yes.
UK. So the Guardian should have got it right, and it didn't. So I'm going to write a
It
letter.
was
I'm
on
going to write a
for
letter.
everybody. It was on the same button in the remote control. I mean, I
It was
think,
it
or
was it was
there
tra-
was no remote
it
control
was
in
channel 3.
1955, but
It was the
it was
third
the
channel.
same
It
channel.
was
Yeah,
the
it
third
was the
channel.
same channel.
So
For
that's all.
most for the audience, that's what it looked like. They didn't know the background.
No, but exactly. But in 2004,
Yeah.
it then became
Yeah.
ITV
Okay.
PLC. Yeah. Anyway, I got that out of my system now. I feel a lot better
Yes.
now. But everything else you said I agree with everything you said because there's nothing else to add.
Well, there's one more thing to add.
Oh,
Emoji.
oh yes.
Oh,
Oh,
Me,
tap
interesting.
me.
on the
Tap on the
wrist.
wrist
We could say,
but for me being a sourpuss, that's why.
Oh
no,
no.
no, I think
No.
that's
It
fair.
was a factual.
Correction
It
for the
was
Guardian.
important. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Which
Anyone
is important.
picking up something the Guardian says is always fun, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
that's, I mean, a wonderful paper, but they're always a bit sort of clever. So it's nice to get them saying something wrong. We'll pick them up on that. Thank you so much. One more. Ah, yes, I know
Well,
you'll have a
Oliver,
view. Yes. Oh, yes, of
before you
course.
move on, but back in the day, the Guardian used to have like almost a full page of corrections because it used to make so many mistakes,
Oh, the Groiny
and it
ad,
would
as it
have
was
to,
known. Yeah.
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 And Private Eye used to love pointing that out, and probably Private Eye continues to point that out. In fact, probably in my Private Eye issue this week, it's probably already pointing it out as well.
Right. Well, we'll check that up. And if not, then Private Eye have made a mistake. But anyway, we'll get it disappearing into a sort of vortex, a logical vortex of corrections.
Indeed.
And we move on. So this one will be a yes. We'll stay with you, Maureen. So Jimmy Kimmel. I think it's a story that everyone will know, but you probably will explain it better than I would.
Okay, so I think what stands out. So Jimmy Kimmel. He has his monologue and sort of interview show, late night show on ABC, which is owned by Disney, was told to come off air. And what surprised me more than anything was how quickly it became quite political. And what had happened is on one of his shows, he kind of like aimed at the so-called sort of MAGA gang for perhaps being sort of being party to the Charlie Kirk sort of murder. So a bit unfortunate certain things he said, but were definitely misinterpreted. But within days of him saying that, and I think it was like a Monday night, and then by Wednesday, the FCC commission basically came out and stood up and said, "Hey, this you're not supposed to say these sorts of things. Don't want you on air. Come off air." And frankly, the FCC isn't meant to be the speech police. It regulates spectrum, not satire. And the threat of regulation can be enough really to sort of chill people's sort of speech. They're not supposed to be interfering with the content as much as just simply regulate sort of licenses. And the US, and I know Claire probably can sort of articulate the differences between the US broadcast system versus the UK or European. It's highly complex and highly it's definitely difficult and still controlled by local broadcasters rather than the big networks. And so there was major pushback, and Disney, Bob Iger, basically took the show off air. It's back up now, it's back on now, but the backlash was extraordinary. There were consumers switching off Disney Plus, cancelling their membership, and actually taking a photograph and sending it in on various social media platforms. Hundreds and hundreds of actors and film stars and whatnot were revolting as well. So Disney really had a handful to deal with, and the political machine and the political administration were having a heyday, saying, "Yeah, great, we can now sort of control almost, what's being said about our administration on any platform." So it's rather a tricky situation, but at the core of this was the US's First Amendment, which is a freedom of speech, and now I think they're taking a sort of step back, saying you're not supposed to police speech whatsoever, or at least do not police satire. But there's a bigger question going on in the background, and that was really very much about clearance of a major merger, a major acquisition between Sinclair and I think it's Tegna, and that is still not been approved yet, and that has implications for whether or not the affiliates of Disney and the big networks will take certain shows that they are creating. And interestingly, even with Kimmel back on air, I think 20 to 25% of US households still are not able to view it at the sort of local level, and people are running to YouTube instead to watch it. But sorry, it's quite a complicated sort of situation there, highly politicized. And good old Jimmy Kimmel was back on air 2 nights ago, teary-eyed and still very strong and still very opinionated, so he doesn't have any conditions put on him. He's just going to do and say what he wants during the monologue. So it's a sad situation that's going on over there in the US, but could never imagine it happening here in the UK or in Europe. But Claire,
oh dear, will that come back to haunt us? And for the third time, I have to remind you to do a Podmoji.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm tearing up because it was rather. So watching him come back on stage and that monologue was just really teary-eyed. So my emoji is teary-eyed, and I'm glad he's back. Yay, Jimmy! Yay, Jimmy Kimby.
We don't want to show any affiliation either way, of course. Claire.
It was a messy situation. I think it was scary in terms. I mean, I'm less of a Jimmy Kimmel fan than Maureen is. I don't think many people are as much of a Jimmy Kimmel fan as Maureen is. But equally, he didn't break any rules. And so I think we have to be very careful when regulators who are meant to look at rules start making up things that have got nothing to do with rules, because then it's censorship. Interestingly, there's been a thing in France going on, which we could go into more detail about it. One of the right-wing parties in the right-wing media has criticized the equivalent of the BBC in terms of radio for having lunch with some of the left-wing party people, and sort of said that it showed that they were closer and they weren't biased, and this was a huge problem. And because it's public radio, it's created a bit of a hoopla. So not at all the level of Jimmy Kimmel, but there are things happening, and of course the BBC's been, constantly is being criticised for taking sides. That being said, that's different because that's public radio. I think it's messy. My Podmoji is a mess. Imagine like a whole messy.
It's the arms again, which is fine.
The arms, and it's a very important part. I'm French,
it's a good part of the body.
Hands.
They're so useful.
So it's messy. I'm glad Disney is seeing the light and brought him back. He didn't really have a choice. I suspect Kimmel lawyered up and said, "I'm sorry. You're going to have to pay me a lot of money if you don't bring me back." But it's interesting that the syndicated channels some of them have chosen not to run him. It will continue to be messy. We should at some point I think we spoke about the syndication model a while back, but we could do another run on that because it's getting more and more complicated with all of this reorganization happening in the US. Anyway, messy is my Podmoji.
That's fine, and that gives you enough points to draw level with Maureen. So it's a draw, 101 points each. Well done. That's excellent. But you've just reminded me to listen to the Amy Poehler podcast as well. She is wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good podcast. I recommend it.
Yeah, she's
For
brilliant.
everybody who's also listening to ours, obviously.
Yes, indeed. Yes, maybe we'll do a swap thing and say, Amy, would you do a clip of ours, and
exactly.
we'll do a clip of yours, and let's see how we get on with that. So brilliant! A draw in the Podmojis, a lovely episode. That deep dive was special. That deep dive was special. The structure, the precision, what's the word? The insight, I think is the word I'm looking for. So we have to go. We're slightly over. It only remains for me to say Maureen goodbye and thank you.
Goodbye, Oliver. Goodbye, Claire.
And also the same exactly to Claire.
Goodbye, Oliver. Goodbye, Maureen. Goodbye, everyone.
A very enjoyable time we've had. See you on the next one. But for now, bye-bye.